Hey everybody, Ron Bielefeld, Whistling Wings Photography. Welcome to another video. I really want to start out the video with a commercial, but I'm going to because it's a big part of what I do now. And it's about this, the speed shooter harness system that I make and sell. And so if you will bear with me, take a look at this quick commercial for the speed shooter harness system, and then we'll be on to the video itself. Thanks so much for watching. Okay, so over the past, I don't know, few weeks, I've been shooting the Canon R5 Mk with the Canon 200 to 800 because I wanted to see how good this combination can be for what I do, birds in flight. I even took a trip to South Carolina to visit a good photography friend of mine, and we went out off the coast of South Carolina and we found some oyster catchers, American oyster catchers. We found short-billed dowitchers. We found semi-palmated plovers, things like that, in flight and static, perched, to see how this combination would fare. So, did that. Been doing kingfishers too, and hey, by the way, if you're interested in doing a kingfisher tour, not a kingfish. A kingfish is a fish. Anyway, I'm a little tired this morning. A belted kingfisher tour, I am doing those now through the end of February of 2025. So if you're interested in doing that, we can definitely arrange that. But anyway, I use this combination like I did in the past video that I just did, looking at whether the R5 Mk2's autofocus was up to the task. Well, it was up to the task of catching diving kingfishers with the 600 f4 RF attached to it. How did it do with the 200 to 800? Did Kingfisher work with it? And overall, I'm going to show a bunch of images, and then I'm going to talk while these images are up, and you can see for yourself how well this combination did. Overall image quality wise, how did that do? Well, you know, if you take a look at the images, you got to keep your expectations in line with this lens. Is not an L lens. It's under $2,000. Take a look at the images. I'm not disappointed at all. They look great. Are they quite as sharp, quite the detail as a 600 RF in some cases? No. But then again, if it was, especially given that it's a zoom from 200 to 800. That's a great focal length range for birds in flight. Hey, if this thing was as good as a 600 f4, this at 600 is really sharp. But if it was as good as a 600, who the heck would ever buy it? The 600 f4, $13,000. No one would buy it. It's not quite as good of image quality, but I'll tell you what, I'm not disappointed at all, and I hope you see by images here that for the most part, I don't know what more you'd really want. How about autofocus, tracking capabilities? Is it as fast? Is it fast enough to do birds in flight? Well, static birds, of course. Birds in flight. Now these aren't slow species that I was photographing with this combination. You know, we had, of course, the American oyster catcher, which isn't a big bird. It's not super fast, but it's not slow. It's not a great blue heron or sandhill crane or anything like that. Then we had some small shorebirds, like short-billed dowitchers and semi-palmated plovers and western sandpipers and things, ruddy turnstones. These are fast little birds. It worked well for me. It really did. Basically shot this 600 to 800 millimeters. Not so much in the shorter ranges. No, it's fine with that, and it's great to have that. But when we're shooting birds, we're almost always out there on the long side, right on the long end of the range of the zoom. So I shot 600, 700, 800 millimeters for the most part. All these images you can see on my SmugMug page as well, and you can see which ones were shot at 600, 700, 800 millimeters and all the different settings. People want me to put my settings, f-stop and aperture and shutter speed for every image. That's how. Hey, I'm just a little bit too lazy to do that. 100 images, over 100 images in this video, that's a lot of work. Hey, if you're really interested in my settings, you can go to the SmugMug page, find all these images. You can hit the little I for information icon, and it'll tell you everything about my settings and all that kind of stuff for each image. So there you go. You can get that information pretty easily. But anyway, back to the autofocus performance. I think it was really, really good. Fast, quick. That's the thing nowadays. It used to be that, especially cheaper lenses, or if you put teleconverters on lenses, once we got into the digital age of photography and autofocus and all that kind of stuff, things would slow down. With the RF system especially now, I'm just not seeing much change in the speed of the autofocus system, no matter what lens you really put on these cameras. Even if you put teleconverters on the lenses and put them on the cameras, they're still really fast. I had no problem with the camera and this lens combination keeping up with birds gaining on the camera really fast, flying away from the camera really fast, going across in front of me, all that kind of stuff. It did really, really well. What else is there to talk about? Let me look at my notes. The overall image quality, IS performance. Hey, there's a cool thing about shooting this lens. It's slow. So why is that a good thing or a cool thing? Well, at 800 it's f9, and then you go to 700, 600, you're down at f8. That's not real fast. A lot of people see that as a drawback, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's also kind of a benefit. Built in, if you want to put it that way, in the sense that you get depth of field. So if you've got birds getting really close, or if you want to get multiple birds sharp, maybe like this flock of short-billed dowitchers, you've kind of got that built in. You're already at f9, right? 800 millimeters, you can be at f9 at 7 and 6, or at f8. You can go even more depth of field, go to f10, which I think I did a few times, for flock shots. But it's kind of built in there. It's really easy when you're shooting an f400, f2.8 or a 600 f4 to be wide open all the time, and that's great for backgrounds. But you'll see the backgrounds and the images I'm shooting, they look pretty nice. They're smooth and they're blurred out really nice, separating the subject from the background. But you shoot at f2.8, you shoot at f4, and boy, your depth of field on the bird, on your subject, can be pretty darn shallow. And if the eye's sharp, great, but a lot of the rest of the bird won't be. So you get some built-in depth of field here. Of course, that is a drawback as well, because what if you need that f2.8 or that f4 because the light isn't very good? And if you look at a lot of the images, especially the ones when I was shooting the American oyster catchers and stuff up in South Carolina, the light was not very good for the most part. But I was still shooting this, and I was still getting some shots. It is a little bit difficult. It brings on a little bit of a hardship to us trying to capture birds in flight when you can't get your shutter speeds up high enough at 800 millimeters. It tests our skill in panning and as photographers in general to get sharp shots. And I will tell you, when you're shooting at slower shutter speeds with this setup, 800 millimeters, the R5 Mark II at 45 megapixels, it does tax your skills. You need to have good technique. You need to be very conscious of how you're panning and what you're doing in order to get tack sharp shots. But it can be done, as you're seeing in these images. You just have to work a little harder. But again, you're not spending $13,000 on a 400 2.8 or 600 f4. It's under $2,000 for a lens that goes to 2 to 8. That is got great image quality. It's sharp, and if you do things correctly, there you go. You've got it. Now, IS IBIS. Let's talk about that with this lens on the R5 Mark II. Well, it doesn't have the modes. It doesn't have mode 1, mode 2, and mode 3. And the more I use this lens, whether it's on the R3 or the original R5 or now on the R5 Mark II, I'm missing those modes. I really am. You know, if you're shooting static stuff, turn it on, slow shutter, it works great. It works good for video too. But if you're panning, the more I shoot it, the more you turn it on and you try to pan, and it just is not as good as if you had mode 2 on, say, the 600 f4, the 300 2.8, 100 to 300 2.8, or the 400 2.8, 100 to 500. You can put it on mode 2. It just works better. It reacts better. Your images come out better. If you're panning really, really fast and doing really fast stuff, having it on can help. But if you're doing more of the regular type panning speeds or very slow, I don't like it. I turn it off. Even at slower shutter speeds, and I find my images are better overall. So, static, yes, turn it on for me. Any kind of real panning, unless it's really fast panning stuff, I'm just keeping it off. I don't like the way it behaves, given that you don't have the modes to choose from. So maybe that's a little bit of a tip there. Try that, see if you find the same things I'm finding when it comes to IBIS with this lens, on the R5 Mark II, but also on other cameras. I don't think the camera really is the main thing here. It's the lens and how it is determining, along with the camera, what's going on panning wise. So anyway, yeah, so I touched on it. I touched on both of the main drawbacks of this combination of this lens on this camera, and some of it's just this lens in general. The drawback, of course, is it's slower. But let's be honest with ourselves. I'm being honest with myself in that, I like to shoot in good light. And so we strive to find good light that'll make our images look really nice, make them pop, make them dynamic. And in that case, the slowness of the lens isn't that big a deal, but it is slow. So if that's a big deal to you, then maybe, it's not the lens for you. You're gonna have to spend some money. You can get to 100 to 500. That's 7.1 at 500, so you're still at f10 if you put a teleconverter on there, trying to get out to that 800 millimeter range out in that area. So it's not a fast lens either. So Canon's kind of lacking a little bit there. You have to spend some money to get a fast lens. You want to shoot in poor light. The other drawback, talked about it. When you're shooting slower shutter speeds, kind of because of the slowness of the lens, it's taxing. It's a demanding combination to shoot, getting sharp shots. You really have to watch your technique. So, but overall, given what we're talking about here, the cost point and all that kind of stuff, and the flexibility of the zoom, 200 to 800, you don't get any flexibility. Well, you don't get any, but the flexibility that comes with a prime, like the 300, 100 to 300, the 400 to 600, soon the 200 to 500. In order to get a lot of flexibility, you start taking teleconverters, putting them on and taking them off, and that's not as nice as just being able to zoom in and out. So anyway, talking about primes, the flexibility that you get Shooting 200 to 800, all you got to do is zoom in and out. Relatively light, agile combination here. I like it. And I'm going to shoot it. I'm shooting it. I'm still shooting it. Kingfisher's nice, depending on what he's doing. If he's diving at me or whatever, you know, I can adjust real quickly with this combination. So, there you have it. Overall grade on this, B, B+. I like it. I'll never get rid of my 600 f4 unless, of course, I get the 200 to 500 f4 and put a teleconverter on it. Again, the zoom is so nice to have versus, you know, just a prime that is what it is unless you start putting on and taking off teleconverters. Hey, maybe Canon will come out when they announce a 200 to 500, maybe they'll announce a variable teleconverter. I keep hearing different things about that. I hear that they've completely done away with that idea, and now all of a sudden I've heard recently again that no, they're talking about that. They're doing it. They're going to do it probably. Well, we'll see. I don't know. Let me know what you guys know. You know anything about a variable teleconverter coming out? How about the 200 to 500? It's supposed to come out this month. Now I'm hearing early next year. Yeah, we'll see. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you like my channel, if you like the content of my videos, please go ahead and subscribe. It means a lot to me continuing to do these videos, which I hope you find have at least a little bit of content in them that helps you out. So until next time, stay safe out there. Hey, if you're using the 200 to 800, I hope you have good light. It helps a lot. Hey, I'll see you soon.